phazon mines. Welcome back to more Let's Play Metroid Prime. Last time we advanced all throughout the phazon mines, getting up to pretty much the end of it. We also, at the very end of the video, I retraced my steps and got the final missile that I happened to miss while we were finishing up Phendrana. So at this point in the game, we have every single missile, although our count isn't full, every single power bomb, and we're only missing one energy tank, which frankly, I would say is pretty darn good. So otherwise, let's see, looks like I did read all of this. Excuse me, Mr. Metroid. We simply cannot be bothered by you right this moment. But coming on up here, I believe, let's see, health alert for phazon radiation. I think I actually did read all this. Huh, how good of me. But coming through here, huh, Pyro Trooper. Nothing we can't handle. Perfect. And some pretty interesting architecture here with all the gears, but what we're actually interested in is this security gate. Security gate's locked down. Scan indicates partial control system damage due to exposure to frigidite. Interesting. And what are you? Security gate bypass unit encased in frigidite shell. Exposure to extreme heat could clear unit and restore function. More or less, just keep shooting it. Make sure you got your plasma beam equipped. Nothing too hard, but nice little puzzle. And for our reward, well, they've been talking about the Omega Pirate, and it's time we finally say hello. I wonder, can we scan it? Yes, we can. A new creature entry has been downloaded to your logbook. Morphology, Omega Pirate. Most powerful of the elite pirate forces. Omega Pirate can become invisible to normal sight. It is vulnerable when cloaked, as all energy is drawn from defense systems. By exposing itself to phazon, it can regenerate damaged tissue and organs. Considered the pinnacle of the elite pirate program, this enemy should be handled with extreme caution and maximum firepower. So yeah, bit of a nice advantage. Also, that platform is now active. Kind of interesting how you can actually come in here and preemptively scan a lot of this. I don't think it's entirely intended. But welcome to a pretty interesting fight. This is one that usually stumps a lot of people. And frankly, I can't blame them. What you need to do is more or less the same strategy as normal elite pirates. Basically, wait for them to use pretty much any attack, and then sneak around them with, say, a super missile and break off their limbs. I say break off. Ooh, that was actually extremely lucky. And now comes the gimmick. Those phazon pools are where it's going to teleport to, because it will now go invisible. It's going to take a little minute for it to show up, and in the meanwhile, there are going to be more enemies here. What you honestly want to do is look around and more or less ignore these guys. You can get rid of them, but you want to actually focus on the boss here. As he's regenerating, hit him with a super missile. After doing that, he's going to leave and find a new position. Basically, keep turning your camera around and looking for him. If you don't defeat him in time, he'll simply regenerate his limbs. After that, keep hitting him with firepower, making things work. Admittedly, the troopers really should just be ignored. This is one of the few fights in the game I would honestly recommend that. It's kind of weird, but trust me on it. This is also a great case of where, frankly, I seriously prefer just using super missiles for most of it. You probably could do something fairly effective with the flamethrower, which I guess, while we're here, let's give it a shot. Seems okay. I don't think it's worth the missiles, but it does seem to, at the very least, ignore his generator, or the thing that's pulling our shots in. So, if nothing else, I guess it's a way to somewhat speed up the fight. I probably wouldn't recommend focusing on it, but hey, pretty alright. And honestly, again, I would just ignore most of the normal guys, look around for the boss, which is a little annoying. When you see him, hit him with a super missile. You can actually time it correctly to where if you get lucky, you can just outright kill him. Like so. One more super missile, this fight's over. So basically, just gotta get lucky. And there you go. That's all the Omega Pirate has to offer. And although that looked like it must have hurt, it did anything but. Giving us the final suit, the Phazon suit. Your suit has been infused with pure phazon. This corruption prevents damage from phazon radiation. Additional data has been downloaded. So now, while we will do some reading, in true Metroid fashion, the first thing to do, other than read, is backtrack. No, I'm not kidding, but we'll get to it. First and foremost, the Phazon suit. The power suit has been corrupted by viral exposure, turning it into the Phazon suit. Samus's notes. The viral corruption of the power suit has some beneficial side effects. The suit is now resistant to the effects of blue phazon. The suit is not invulnerable to the effects of all phazon, however. In addition to phazon resistance, the corruption has dramatically increased defensive shielding levels. Now, for those of you who have a very keen eye, you may have noticed something in the arm cannon section. The phazon beam, a hidden item that they do not tell you about. The viral corruption of the power suit has altered the arm cannon as well. It is now capable of firing the powerful phazon beam. Samus's notes. The phazon beam appears to trigger in the presence of high concentrations of phazon. Regular arm cannon functions return when phazon is not present. The charge beam does not function when the phazon beam is active. More or less, the phazon beam is a situational item that is only going to be used at one point in the entire game. For anyone who has seen the previous Metroid games, such as Super Metroid, or even games like Metroid Fusion, you might have a pretty good understanding of what that weapon is. For those who have not seen those games, I don't wish to spoil it. But for anyone who's played a Metroid game, you understand where that one portion of the game will be in which that beam will be used. And to be fair, it should be fairly obvious. But still, like I said, I don't want to spoil it for those of you who don't know or don't want to guess. That is perfectly acceptable. Still, it is nice to know that you have it and how to activate it. You need to stand in a high concentration of phazon. Evidently, everything here isn't considered a high concentration, merely just a normal amount of phazon. Now, as you can see there, the final artifact was hidden in the mines all along. This is the reason I recommended waiting until getting a later upgrade. Because one, not only do you look absolutely awesome with your new black and red morph ball and accompanying suit, but you won't take any phazon damage here. Now, normally, if you have every single energy tank, you can get this and not have to backtrack, but you're going to take a substantial amount of damage. This is the artifact of Newborn, the last of 12. And with that, we have every single artifact, every single suit upgrade, every single missile upgrade, every single power bomb upgrade, all of the beams, every other extra item. There's only one thing we are now missing: the final energy tank, which I am pleasantly surprised to tell you that it's actually one of the easiest items in the game to obtain. And frankly, I really appreciate them just kind of giving it to you. You'll see what I mean in, well, not too long here. We just gotta finish our backtracking, as is standard with Metroid. Come on. It wouldn't have been fitting if they didn't give you the final suit and then didn't make you go back for at least one item, right? Come on, it's kind of tradition at this point. Get a new item, go back, even if just a little bit, use your new thing, and then continue forward. After all, it was for an artifact, which frankly is pretty darn worth our time. Plus, it was the final one. Once we get that final E-Tank, it's time to go finish the game, which is kind of crazy. It felt like not too long ago, we were underpowered, barely surviving, really fighting for our lives. Now, well, frankly, we're thriving. We have so many upgrades, so much new power, and frankly, we look darn good. As you can see, even normal Metroids don't stand a darn chance against us. Also, I realize that I really should have been paying attention to what I'm doing. But still, point is, we have come such a long way. There is no chance we aren't ready for the final boss. Which, to be fair, isn't the hardest, but you'll see. It still has some fairly interesting tricks up its sleeves once we get there. And now, to be fair, at this point in the game, you probably know who the final boss is, or at least what it is. They've kind of been talking about it for a fair bit. But again, for those who don't know, I won't spoil it. We'll see it soon enough anyways. So now that we're done in this room, simply take your elevator on up, which is kind of funny that they have an elevator in here. Still, not complaining. And although this looks rather important, it isn't. You'd think it would be. But yeah, there's really not much of anything here to scan, which is honestly, I feel really surprising. Like, I feel like they should have put some pirate logs or something here, but, well, I'm not complaining. I'm especially not complaining that they literally just give you the final energy tank. 100% of all pickups have been acquired. Man, does that feel good. Security gate disengaged, access granted. So now, if you remember when we returned to Phazon Mines, this is where that red door led the whole time. So now, at this point, it's time to go to the impact crater and finish the game. Kinda crazy, huh? And, in true Metroid fashion, kind of hilarious how in order to finish the game, you have to backtrack. It really is a bit poetic, isn't it? You've spent the entire game going back and forth, getting one new item, going all the way back to get one new item to go a little forward, and then you've kept doing it. And now, finally, we have the one new item that'll let us beat the game. Admittedly, I don't mind it. Not at all. And, lucky for us, we can just go right back up through Magmoor Caverns. Yes, we could go back through the mines, which, to be fair, isn't a terribly slow way, but at this point, we know Magmoor Caverns like the back of our hands. Or, in this case, the back of our arm cannon. Because, frankly, we've been staring at it almost the entire game. So, I'll just take that method. I think it'll work just fine. You know, I really hate wave troopers. They might unironically be my most hated enemy. I gave the Chozo Ghost a fair bit of guff, because they are obnoxious when you find them. I even gave, well, a handful of other enemies some guff too. Namely the pirates that fly, the jet troopers or whatever they're actually called. Point is, I think the wave trooper is probably the most annoying. Not for the fact that they have a lot of health, or for the fact that, you know, they're actually tough and difficult to fight. No. Namely for the fact that the weapon in order to fight them is just not great. Oh my goodness. Really? Well, I'll meet you back up there. Well, at this point, as much as I would love falling down for a second time, let's just reposition ourselves, say hello to the pesky power trooper, and see if we can hit him with a super missile. A good riddance. Admittedly, while I was giving the wave trooper a bunch of guff, I really don't care for any of the elemental troopers. They're a fine idea for an enemy, but they're evidently not all very equal, right? Some are much easier to get rid of than others. And it really is evident when you have to get rid of certain ones, like the wave trooper. They're just so obnoxious to fight that it really shows how not phenomenal some of your upgrades are. Namely, I think the super missile is one of the most solid weapons in the game. The power beam remains just really good all throughout. Even if maybe it's not your main weapon of choice for most of the later portions of the game, it's still at least solid in the fact that it has the super missile, one of the most damaging and cost-effective things in the game. You then have the ice spreader, which is fine where you need it. Still maybe not great, but at least the actual beam is very powerful, if a little slow and inaccurate. The plasma beam, I think, has probably the best firepower, quite literally. And it also has one of the best charge beams in the game. And sure, the flamethrower is alright, but it's probably one of the worst beam combos next to the Wave Buster. And then you have the plasma beam. I just don't think it's very good compared to every other beam. It's awkward, and because of its wave pattern, you can miss some of the try shot that it offers you. and it just makes it to use. I also feel the Wave Buster is just so underpowered compared to everything else for the missile cost. Same with the Flamethrower, to be fair. I think they're amongst the worst beam combos. And admittedly, although I never really used the Ice Spreader, it probably is better than both the Flamethrower and the Wave Buster. They're flashy and kinda cool, but I never really find myself wanting to ever use them. I mean, I tried the Flamethrower on the Omega Pirate and it did fine, but not for the missile consumption. I mean, seriously, we went through almost, what, 100 missiles just to slightly quicken the fight? I really can't say it was very worth it, but to be fair, if you've never played the game before, it did recommend maximum firepower. So, quite literally, we gave it maximum firepower, and ultimately, it was effective. So I imagine the Wave Buster probably would have been slightly better there, assuming that the homing nature of it would have actually connected and auto-targeted for you. But that's also speculation. I really don't know. Point is, the Wave Buster and Flamethrower are probably easily the two worst beam combinations, whereas the Ice Spreader is also admittedly just kinda who cares? Because frankly, I think the Super Missile is just easily the best one. It does so much damage, it consumes the least missiles of any combination at 5, which means you have plenty of them to utilize. You're not going to chew through your missile count like you would with the Wave Buster, that's for sure. And even I feel the Flamethrower doesn't use as many missiles as the Wave Buster. It might be just a weird placebo effect. It's very possible that it uses the exact same amount, but I know for sure the Ice Spreader only uses 10. So, if anything, it's kind of nice that it can affect multiple targets for a few extra missiles. Really, with a lot of the beam combinations though, they all kind of boil down to not being efficient. Like, at all. Most of them use more missiles than is ever necessary to take out any given enemy. I mean, I think the Ice Spreader kind of proves itself. Any enemy in the game can pretty much be beaten if it can be hit by a charge shot and one missile. So, there's no point using 10 to freeze 2 enemies when you could use 2 charge shots and 2 missiles as opposed to 10. So, I mean, ultimately, I guess it's just a matter of time equity and how quickly you want to dispatch an enemy. But at that point, I mean, again, it's not that much slower to use just a normal charge shot. Now, again, this is coming from the perspective of someone who casually plays the game. I'm no speedrunner, I don't know the game all that well. I can obviously get 100% of items with a bit of practice and maybe a guide here and there, but still, you get the idea. But that's where it does make me wonder, in a speedrun of this game, is the Flamethrower and the Wave Buster and Ice Spreader useful? Do they even get them? I really don't know, and I'm kind of curious to go look that up after this. It's one of those things that makes me wonder, like, am I just being overly harsh? Or are these things actually just not as great as I think they are? I don't know. Anyways, after all this time, here we are back here. We have all the keys. Or I suppose artifacts, but ultimately, they are just one big key, aren't they? And with it, we gain ourselves access to the crater. And wouldn't you know, we've got one more fight before we go fight our final boss. For anyone who knows Metroid, you knew Ridley was coming. But for those of you who are new, let's say hello to one of the most famous reoccurring bosses, good old Ridley. Oh boy. Usually one of the harder fights in the Metroid series, Ridley's renowned for doing horribly powerful tail attacks, hitting you usually with some sort of flame breath, and of course, just generally being obnoxious. Now frankly, I should probably scan him, but in this phase, he just kinda remains out of range, so it's a little hard to scan him right now. Plus two, I mean, you know, your first thought of fighting Ridley probably isn't, oh, I need to scan him. Anyways, the artifact of strength has been returned. Thank you, game. As you can see, Ridley is slowly destroying things in the arena. So I guess if you never scanned that you returned each artifact, maybe you should have done that before the fight, but I'm not terribly worried. Otherwise, a new creature's been added to our logbook. Morphology Meta Ridley. Genetically enhanced Ridley metaform. Reborn and evolved through pirate technology, Meta Ridley is a fearsome enforcer. Its armored hide is extremely resilient, save for the chest, which has thinner plating. The pirates have used a number of potent weapons to the creature, including a multi-missile system, a kinetic breath weapon, a Meson bomb launcher, and an ultra-thermal flame strike projector. Meta Ridley is also a formidable melee combatant, making any sort of engagement a risky proposition. So, as you can see, most of fighting Meta Ridley is kind of just blast him in the chest. That's pretty much what most of the fight is going to boil down to. I really like the plasma beam for this fight. Admittedly though, like I mentioned before, super missiles are still really darn good, even this late in the game. They're going to remain and stay your bread and butter ability. They're just that good. As you can see, Meta Ridley is a bit of a pain. Hard to track, fast moving, and airborne. Something that, frankly, you would think, you know, would be more annoying than it kind of is. Again, the plasma beam kind of handles him pretty handily. Come on, guy. Now, admittedly, this is a fight I've never really messed around with other beam weapons. I imagine the Wave Buster could do decent damage when he's up close. The same with probably the Flamethrower. I don't think I would even bother trying the Ice Spreader, to be completely honest with you. Seems like a pretty great waste of time. But I do know for a fact super missiles are darn good. Still, to be honest, the plasma beam kinda just does enough damage that with charge shots alone, you can get through the fight pretty easily. I wouldn't even worry switching weapons. It's kinda interesting how Ridley's appearance in this game isn't all that difficult. I feel in a lot of other Metroids, specifically the 2D ones, like Super Metroid, what was I gonna say? Fusion. Ridley's a lot more dangerous in those games, just because on a 2D plane, he's usually a lot larger compared to his 3D counterpart here. Still, he's got some tricks up his sleeve. As we've damaged his wings, he will now switch to a different phase. In this phase, I believe you need to shoot his mouth and then his chest unit. This is where, frankly, super missiles are probably the more preferred method of attack. But still, you can get through the whole fight just using the plasma beam. It's seriously that good. Still, for prosperity's sake, let's switch to the power beam here and see what we can do. As you can see, his charge does a fair bit of damage. Luckily for us, we are quite agile still. Yeah, as you can see, he gets a little happy with just doing that same ability. But yeah, see, Super Missile does fine damage. But frankly, the Plasma Beam kinda is just better for time equity in this fight, which is a little weird to say. You would think the Super Missile would be the way to go, but no. Plasma Beam all the way. Namely, it's kind of the fact that the beam combo takes longer to charge than just a normal charge shot. So it's honestly kind of just better to use the Plasma Beam. Even if you don't get a full charge in, it does really good damage. Careful for that darn charge. So long as you're being decently careful, Ridley really doesn't do all that much damage. It really helps that you have the phazon suit, though. I wouldn't like to see the amount of damage that he does with the base suit. I imagine it would be a ridiculous amount. And I want to say, too, if you use the Morph Ball, I think there's a way you can actually get him to reveal his chest a little sooner. I might be wrong on that, though. It's been a little minute. And even then, as you can see, just shooting his chest normally, even without a charge shot, still does really good damage. So if you don't want to risk going for the charge shot, missing your entire damage window, you can just shoot him normally, and it works pretty darn well. The Plasma Beam is just darn good. Wow, you really like charging, huh, buddy? There we go. I'm surprised that didn't hit me. I have just one more phase. You know what? Let's try the Morph Ball, see if we actually can do something here. Because I don't think it does anything. But looks cool. So yeah, just stick to your normal dodging. Turns out, just backing up does a pretty good job of dodging. Be able to just give him a few more shots. That's all he wrote. There we go. The way forward has been opened. Now, while it does look a little grim and like we've taken a lot of damage, trust me, it's not all that much. So, next time we play not Super Metroid, my goodness, there I go reminiscing. Seeing Ridley always makes me think of Super Metroid. Next time we play Metroid Prime, we'll go fight the namesake of the game. As always, I'm Brett. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.